So I want you to think like the people who have high net worths, right? I got a friend right now who's worth $20 million, and he's trying to figure out how to generate extra cash flow on his $20 million of assets to buy more Bitcoin. He's not thinking about how do I quit this because I have, a few hundred coins. He's not thinking about that. He's worried about how do I acquire as much of this as possible. So if you're sitting there going, when can I stop working? When can I retire on Bitcoin? You're fucking losing. And you're definitely disserving the progeny that is to come. So get to work. Figure out what work means to you. Figure out what value you can create in the world. Figure all of this stuff out and then create some value and then buy some more Bitcoin. And then you have this overall life force circle that's actually protecting your spiritual value of your work, because you finally have an asset that you can actually put it into, rather than before where you just work and save this cash pot here until it gets big enough so you can finally buy a house. Now, whatever that cash pot is, you can dump it into Bitcoin. It's quite interesting because the wealthiest people I know, and my clients and friends and everyone else who's worth over, let's say, $1 million, right, and reaching all the way into the 25-30 million dollar range, no one's asking when can I borrow against my Bitcoin. No one's asking that at all. And so when I hear people who are talking about borrowing against their Bitcoin, I was trying to dig into the mindset around that and trying to see how I can share, because it seems like people who are of less of a net worth are more worried about borrowing against their Bitcoin. I want to impart some wisdom and lessons that I've learned, which is exactly why I need you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, because the faster you subscribe, the faster YouTube will, the algorithm gets spanked, and it puts the message in front of more people. And the last thing I want is for people to think that they need to over leverage on their Bitcoin and get into a position where they need to sell their Bitcoin. So underlying reason why people are asking this question about when can I borrow against my Bitcoin, how to do that, what's the safest way to do that, this is generally, of course, generally people without a net worth. And the reason for that is that, generally speaking, people with a net worth have a certain element of an off switch that is broken. So for me, regardless of how much net worth I have, I could turn, like I put a tweet out saying I could record and share my knowledge on Bitcoin every day for the next 8 years without taking a single penny for it, because I don't need it. Because even though I don't need it, even though there is this ability for me to just disappear and not talk about anything if I don't want to, I still feel compelled to do it, because there is something wrong, to a certain extent, something wrong. So, from the outside, it might look like there's something right, but really there's something wrong, because my brain has no off switch, right? I can't turn it off. I can't turn my desire to do something off. And I admire people that can. But the reality is that most people who have generated any amount of success in their life have this faulty off switch. So you have to learn to embrace it. And once you embrace it, you realize that there's a lot more people out here with the faulty off switch. And whether something is for, however success is defined, they'll still pursue it, because it's the pursuit of success that gives you the value that you are looking for. It gives you the purpose that you're looking for. It's never really even about achieving the success, right? I could tell you, okay, I want the biggest, most important YouTube channel in Bitcoin, etc., etc. What does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything. At the end of the day, for me, what's most important is getting as many people as possible, like my parents, who, have done the right thing. Generally, the audience that I'm speaking to is 35 to 55, 56, something like that on average. Of course, there's people on either side of that too, but on average, it's that audience who has strived to do something in their life, done the right thing for the longest period, and then been kicked in the balls by the system. That's who I want to get to 1 Bitcoin as fast as possible, because those are the people who deserve to get to 1 Bitcoin. And those are the people who have tried to do the right thing. Again, like my parents, 35 years in the United Kingdom, doing the right thing only to find that their property portfolio is undervalued based on the amount of pounds that were printed. That is who my YouTube channel is for. So I could tell you that, yeah, it's important for me to have the biggest YouTube channel, but it's irrelevant, because really the goal is, whether it's me or anyone else, that particular segment gets orange pilled by or gets their urgency from, as long as they get it. That's the main thing. My goal here is to just, do something, right? Do something, because this is so urgent. What is the most valuable thing that I can do right now? And valuable doesn't mean to you. It means valuable for the world. What is the most valuable thing that you can do right now to impact the world? And how do you judge whether it is valuable or not? Whether someone's going to pay you for it or not. It's just very simple. Whether someone's going to pay you for it or not, right? So I know for a fact that at some point, this channel is going to be big enough where we already had it. We already had sponsorships, people trying to get me to spew their stuff. It's no one that I respect at this point. And I don't need it, so I don't really think about it. But we've already had people approach to try and get me to talk about their offering, because I understand that eyeballs equals value, right? So there's always, I'm doing something valuable, and that value will be returned to me at some point when I decide that I want it. And that's what I would implore you to think about. Like, what could you do with your life, rather than just, what are you going to do? Borrow against your Bitcoin and sit at home? Instead of worrying about when are you going to be able to borrow against your Bitcoin, figure out why you're so sad with your life that you want to quit in the first place. Figure that out. It's extremely important. And Bitcoin is the first time in human history that every person, whether you're at the bottom of the economic scale or at the top of the economic scale, you know that you can work, create some value in the world, and you have a savings tool that's out there that's allowing you to protect the value that you've created. So in essence, this should be inspiring you to work more, not work less. This should be inspiring you to do more, to gain more value, to give more value, so that you receive more value, so that you can put it into Bitcoin for yourself and your family. I should not be receiving this question. This question is I'm only receiving this question from people who are either new to a net worth or are not at an appropriate net worth. Because once you get to an appropriate net worth, you realize that there is no stopping. You're going to create value, right? And one day in the future, and Bitcoin's not there. Everyone knows that part. Bitcoin's not there yet. Like, one day in the future where Bitcoin will be worth, a lot more money than it is now, and then you can either borrow against it or sell some on a monthly basis. But Bitcoin's not there yet. So why are so many people worried about it? The only reason you're worried about it is because you're tired of the life that you're living. You're tired of the life that you're living for the fiat that you've been working for. So the question that I want to ask you is, how do you stop? What is it going to take for you to stop thinking like a loser and start thinking like a high net worth individual, and start focusing on creating more value in the world? Whatever that is. And again, I will reiterate, value isn't what you feel good doing. Creating value in the world is not what you feel good doing. You know how long my best friend told me for years, you need to create a YouTube channel. You need to create a YouTube channel. You need to create a YouTube channel. Screw all this other direct marketing and all this other stuff. You need to create a YouTube channel. I didn't listen because it didn't feel good to me. It didn't feel good to be so out here, right? It didn't feel good. But he was right, right? Because even though it doesn't feel good, it's the right thing to do, and people's lives are being impacted. Do you know how many messages I get every day of people telling me they finally got to 1 Bitcoin and the urgency was because of watching one of my videos? That's amazing. right? And that's real value that's being added. That all of those people, in addition to everyone else who has gained any value from anything I say in this next, between 3 months ago and the next bull run, do you think that that's going to be a powerful community in the future? Certainly going to be more powerful than the $10 a month DCA gang, I'll tell you that much. So really the point here, this is in essence a mindset video. This is not even about Bitcoin at this point. Bitcoin allows you to focus on creating new value streams that you can send out into the world to receive more value, because you finally have something to save in. But if you're sitting there wondering, oh, when can I borrow against my Bitcoin? I bet you more than likely you're a millennial. There is definitely no, boomer, for example, that I know is thinking like this. They're not worried about it. Why? Because they have that inside of them to create value. If you're a millennial, you need to look yourself dead in the mirror and ask yourself why you're so weak when it comes to creating value. Why you are not taking advantage of this amazing capitalist system that we have to create value in the way that people need it, in the unique way that you can help them create it, whether it's through a job or your own business or self-employment, whatever. And finally you have a methodology and a place to park that value, and you don't want to do it. All you want to do is sit on the Bitcoin that you have, and that's it. It doesn't make any sense to me, right? So I would implore you to please figure that out. It's extremely important that you figure that out. Why don't you have the desire to go out there and create as much value as possible so that you can acquire as much Bitcoin as possible? And why do you feel content with the amount of Bitcoin that you have? And I want you to stop asking the question of, when can I borrow against my Bitcoin? Because this system is moving in a way where when the time comes that you can borrow against your Bitcoin, you won't have to ask the question. They'll be calling you. They'll be calling you because they'll need the Bitcoin on their balance sheet, so they'll be calling you in order to offer you ways to borrow against it. Now is just not the time for that. Now is the time for accumulation. You're worrying about the wrong thing. Stop thinking about when you retire. Stop thinking about when you can stop working. Stop thinking about all of that. Get focused. You got one chance in history to actually acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. Focus on creating value. Focus on adding value to the world. And focus on asking for the value that you're worth. When you do that, take that value, save it in Bitcoin, and accumulate. This is the strategy that Saylor is doing. How come Saylor just didn't, buy his first purchase of 10,000 Bitcoin and just retire? Why would he go out there and utilize his amazing machine called MicroStrategy, which is a cash flow generating machine, to go and buy more Bitcoin? And the beautiful thing is, whether you are thinking about how to create more Bitcoin avenues, Bitcoin streams, or whether you are trying to figure out whether you're going to retire or not, there are still only 3 rules to Bitcoin. And that's step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, you shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy.